Hi kids, how you doing? Check it out, it's Halloween. See my costume? Check it out. Whoa, look at that. I got the whole kit on. That's my masterly robes, my Zen master robes that I got from Gudo Nishijima in a long time ago. This is the set. This is the actual set he gave me. The set I wear when I do retreats is a different one. It's not quite as fancy. This has the long, see how long those sleeves are? Apparently the monks used to store stuff, like, you can't see it. They used to store stuff in these sleeves. They could carry stuff. It doesn't seem like a real efficient system to me, but there you go. So, reason I'm doing this is, well, obviously it's Halloween, so that's one reason, so I'm in my costume. But the other reason is, someone came up on Twitter the other day as somebody kind of talking about Buddhist masters who use funny names, American specifically, or Western Buddhist masters who use their Dharma names and wear funny clothes, and how this is America, and, well, I don't know if it was America. I guess it's America. Anyway, it's America or generally not Asia, and yeah, this stuff is inappropriate. And why don't we just wear normal clothes? I like these. I look like Batman. Well, not Batman, more like Dracula. But that fell off. That's not supposed to go that way. It's supposed to hang over. So yeah, first the explanation of the robe, in case you're interested. The robes are supposedly in 3 layers. So this top one, this orange bit on mine, which isn't always orange, depends on who it is. That represents the original OG Mr. Gautama Buddha's robe that he wore, which was supposed to... He told his monks to make robes out of whatever rags they could find, including rags that were used by women who were on the rag, torn up things and stuff chewed by animals and whatnot. They were supposed to sew it together in a certain way and make a robe out of it, and then dye it kind of yellowy, so that's why it's that color. Then underneath it, the black one is like the robes the Taoists wore in China, which then the Buddhists adopted as their robe. So that the top layer is the India part, that layer is the China part, and then if I was really going to be orthodox, I'd be wearing a white layer under it that's a kimono, a Japanese-style kimono, and that's the Japanese layer. In fact, I've got a Rick and Morty t-shirt on under it, so maybe that's the American layer, I don't know. I usually wear just a t-shirt under it, which is slightly unorthodox, but I'm not the only one who does that, so I guess I'm okay. So the idea that the robes are only appropriate if you're in Asia is, it's one I have a little bit of sympathy for that idea, because wearing these robes, honestly, feels a bit pretentious to me, and using a Buddhist name feels a bit pretentious to me. I do have one. It's Odo Ben-e, but I hardly ever trot it out. There are people, though, who use their Buddhist names. As soon as they get their Buddhist names, they're like, that's it. They're nothing. They're whatever Buddhist name they got. They're not Brad anymore. They're Odo, and they're Odo forever. People have their own motivation, so I don't want to impugn anybody's motivation for doing it. For me, it would feel real pretentious to go out there and say, "Hi, I'm Odo," and then shake your hand. Besides that, it sounds too much like odor, so I don't like that one. So I don't know. If I'd gotten a cooler name, maybe it would have been better, but there you go. So that's the thing with that. My rule, it's all bunched up here. The thing I do with them is when there's a ceremony to be done, like the morning services that we do at the retreats, like the one we just had at Mount Baldy last weekend, I put on the robes. And, if there's some specific reason for it, I'll put them on. Otherwise, I don't wear them. I had 2 teachers, as some of you listening know, and one of them, Tim, I've never seen him wear robes. He showed me a picture once of himself in robes, but as far as I know, he doesn't even own that set anymore, and he doesn't wear them ever. Gudo Nishijima, on the other hand, I can't remember ever seeing him not wear robes. I guess I visited him at his office once, and he wasn't wearing the robes. There might have been a handful of other times when he wasn't wearing the robes, but pretty much every time I talked to him, he was wearing his robes. Usually not the full set with this is called the okesa. Often he didn't have the okesa on, or he'd just have a rakusu on, or he'd just have the robe, the underrobe, the kuromo, and nothing over it. But pretty much always wore the robes. So he loved wearing robes, and he used to say he felt more comfortable in the robes than in regular clothes. And Tim doesn't like the robes because probably the same reason kind of that I don't like wearing the robes, because it feels a bit ostentatious and also they're very hard to wear, honestly, because you got to keep pulling. There's a way that Buddhist monks walk around like this, and when I started wearing the robes, I understood why they walk around like that, because that's the best way to keep these robes from falling apart. So there's that too. I don't know how the Buddha wore his, or if maybe it was slightly different the way they wear them in India, but because you'd be like flashing everybody if you wore this part as just your only clothing. But I don't know. You tell me. But there's all this sort of mythology around the robes. There's a chant you do before you put them on. You put them on top of your head and go, Daizai gero fuku muso fukudene hibu nyorai kyo kodo shoshujo. You do that 3 times. And the translation, the standard English translation of that is, great robe of liberation, field far beyond form and emptiness, wearing the Tathagata's teachings, saving all beings. That's the standard version. And you do this to honor the robes, and apparently this dates back to a tradition that Dogen saw them doing in China, where they put the robes on their heads and do these chants, and then he brought that back to Japan. I'm not sure what the Chinese version of that is, but that's the Japanese version, and that's followed in most temples that have that follow the Japanese tradition. And there's as I said, a lot of sort of mythology, like the robe is the great robe of liberation that actually liberates you from karma and stuff. There's an old story about a prostitute who puts on a Buddhist robe as a joke and dances around, and in her next lifetime she gets reborn as a monk or a nun, I'm not quite sure, because of the great merit of the robe. So even if you just put it on as a joke, like I'm kind of doing here, you get great merit. So hey, some merit for me. You don't have to believe in magic, though, to understand this. And there's a story I told maybe in Sit Down and Shut Up, or one of my books, where when I was working for Tsuburaya Productions, they're the makers of Ultraman, which is probably the top, or at least among the top 5 children's shows in Japan, and huge throughout Asia among kids. And one of the things they would do is, every year when they made a new show, they give you a jacket. They give employees a special jacket commemorating the show, and it was always really cool. And I have a little collection of them in my bedroom. And so I was I often wore my Ultraman jacket because it was kind of funny. You hardly saw anybody wearing these special Ultraman jackets, and especially to see a white guy wearing the Ultraman jackets was kind of a real novelty for people. It was kind of fun to get the stares and stuff. But one day I was wearing it. I was in the video store, and I was in the back room doing some cultural research on the sexual mores of the Japanese people, and I realized, oh my God, I'm wearing my Ultraman, my Ultraman jacket, and I just kind of got out of that room and went and looked at other movies for a while. But the thing was, as wearing that jacket, I was representing something. I'm representing the company, and especially as I said, being the white guy in it, I really stood out. So I thought I better not do that. I have something to live up to. And it's the kind of same thing with the robes. You put these on and you feel you've got something to live up to. Every time I put them on, I feel like, oh, I gotta, I have to do my best. I have to represent Buddhism to the world, if I'm gonna dress up like a Buddhist. So that's real interesting, because it makes your behavior a little different around around the clothing you wear, and everybody does this. You wear there's a horrible story that just came out in LA about a guy getting beaten up because he was wearing a Red Sox hat, and the Red Sox won the World Series against the Dodgers. So he was representing something, and that had consequences, and that's really sad. The uniforms worn by the military represent something, and you're holding up the military or police uniforms. I mean, if you're wearing a police uniform, it's actually illegal to wear a police uniform if you're not a police officer. So these mean something, and you don't have to kind of invoke magic powers and merit and all this stuff to make it happen. God, these sleeves are crazy. So the robes have their merit, but as I say, I just feel weird wearing them all the time. Some people can get into it and do it, and other people can't. My friend Tonen O'Connor, who used to be the head of Milwaukee Zen Center, she told me a story once that she felt that people would come up and ask her questions, like deep, meaningful, life and death sort of questions, and she felt like the robes, which she likes to wear all the time, or did then, kind of gave them permission to open up about this stuff. So they have a kind of something, some kind of not magic, but something else. So there's my message about robes, short and sweet. I really appreciate you watching. Thanks. If you want to donate, maybe I can buy a new set of robes for PayPal and Patreon. There's links below. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.